You'll make it home safely, and your family will also make it home safely. Councillor Van Osten is the seconder.
I sent an email earlier in the week on this very topic, and I just wanted to share some little bits of it. We knew this item was coming up. We've had time through the former discussion at our committee and at a session, information session, to really be able to thrash out the details of what's being proposed. And it all adds up and builds a really clear picture. And it's really helped my thinking, not just about raised safety platforms and the benefit that they give to our city, but also ways to be able to overcome some of the objections that are out in the a lot in the Facebook and social media spaces, actually. But we're right in this situation. This is not about necessarily pedestrians, but it's about unsafe speeds, and that means it's still about people. There's new signs, and they're great, and for drivers like me and others in the chamber here who will obey and come in at between 32 and 40 kilometres an hour to that roundabout, mostly we'll be obeying the rules, but the raised safety platforms are not for drivers like us. They're aimed at the other end of the spectrum, and Robin's quite right. There is risks for us as a council, not just a professional risk, but also, as Councillor Louise tells me, a moral risk. And I think that's the bigger one that weighs heavier on my mind. We can build stronger barriers, and this is what I wrote in the email. We can build stronger barriers to stop cars from flipping into the middle, but physics still says that a fast, squishy car meeting an immovable object will produce an unequal outcome for the driver and its passengers, and it's a road to zero approach that I would be supporting today around that. Kia ora.
Thank you. Mayor Southgate.
Thank you. I have to say, I don't love the speed bumps in all places that we've tried. We've done some that we've now modified our approach to. So I'm much more comfortable that we've learned some things around how speed bumps best work, and we've modified our approach. Actually, I was part of putting the very first speed cushions on Grey Street, corner of Grey and Tiaraha, if you can remember that, Eva-Lisa, and they went in because the children walk between Boys High and Hamilton East School and so on, and they went in a little adjustment to the alignment of the roundabout, and apart from fully 100% supportive comments, there was nothing. I've never heard, and they've been in a long time now. This was when it's about 7 or 8 years ago, and they are well appreciated by the pedestrians. So when done right, they just work. People should slow down coming onto roundabouts. It's quite clear they should slow down. We do have to create a walkable city. I'm holding a watching brief place by place. Some places I do believe they work very well, and some places I scratch my head over exactly how they're working. But look, you've got to try something different. This is I have to trust our transport engineers and our transport specialists to look at what is best practice and to continually improve that. So I am supporting the motion today. I hope this next set of improvements brings really good benefits to the local community. And like Angela says, at the end of the day, we are trying to rebalance the rights of pedestrians and other road users against car users. We are trying to get the balance right so that all users of our road can be safer than they presently are. And change is sometimes very difficult, but we've just got to change sometimes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'll also be supporting the motion today. interesting, Mayor Paula mentioned Te Araha Grey Street. I actually enjoy driving through that roundabout because it's not stressful as a driver, and it's easy to get a space to go through. Whereas some of our other roundabouts around the city, it can be extremely stress inducing. And while I advocate a lot for people walking and cycling and their safety, I equally care about people driving. Everyone getting around our city is a human with a family and a life that matters. And so I guess, looking at the crash history here and the advice that we need to do something, what I do want to avoid is a scenario where a year down the track, we haven't done something, someone is seriously injured or killed, and then it's hanging over us that we didn't follow the advice that was given to act on this. So that's what's pushing me to support this today. And just in terms of the value of the raised safety platforms, a small personal experience, almost every day I'll walk from home to work or to the supermarket, and I cross 3 pedestrian crossings on my journey. 2 of them are raised safety platforms with good lighting, and nearly every time cars stop for me to cross. But there's one which has no raised safety platform and fairly poor lighting as well. And every single time cars just keep going through, despite the fact I'm standing there with a baby, like waiting to cross the road, and they just keep going through and going through. So there seems to be something about the raised platforms that actually encourage people to stop when people are crossing. So just putting that out there as well. This isn't a pedestrian crossing, but it does show that people do pay attention to these raised platforms. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Badaf.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The public have good points. The saving grace for this particular project is no humps on the exit lanes. I cannot support that. I believe those are dangerous. My issue with this particular project, although it is described as low cost and is the lowest cost of the 3 options provided, is $400,000 per raised platform. That's the construction cost of a new house. And all we get for it is some concrete and paint, a few signs, and 1,000 traffic cones for weeks on end. This may be beyond council's ability to change the roadwork system in New Zealand, but I have to take a stand against that system. So I can't support this, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Casey Cox.
Yeah, I will be supporting the motion. I think when you look at the costs involved and the costs that could relate to a death on our roads, you can't really compare those two. And I think this treatment is about safer roads and safer roads for our young people, our older people, all our people. I also think there's a really neat identity in all of this work that we can be proud of, and it's about slowing down, which I think, when you look at the world and the state of things at the moment, slowing down and taking time is actually probably one of the things we need to do more of. And I think we can be proud of our city for going in that direction, because we're prioritising safety, we're prioritising well-being, and we're being more thoughtful. And I think that's what the world certainly needs more of. So happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Nadirol.
Thank you. I think it's a given that we know about the big elephant in the room, that being social media. And there are a lot of unhappy people out there about race safety platforms. Even the words race safety platforms starts conversations you don't really want to have.
Yeah.
And, I have people coming into my business when they see me going, why is there? And they're still mad about the Thomas Road roundabout, but don't get me started on that one. So I think the comms around race safety platforms needs to be better. So I was happy to hear Loredana speak to that. The design of the platforms itself, reading through social media as you do, people with previous back surgery, C-sections. There was someone with bowel cancer after chemo, talking about their pain levels and how no matter how slow you go, it still was really painful going over the raised platforms. People who are in wheelchairs, in cars or in vans in wheelchairs, how uncomfortable it was and painful it was. So I'm not sure how we address that through design. But if we are doing this for the safety of everyone, I think it's important that we do keep them in mind. This particular project, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've gone through there and not have had to stop because it was busy anyway. I'm going to trust the staff. I'm going to support this. I know that there's going to be a lot of unhappy people, and I'm trusting the team to actually communicate this well to the public out there.
Just quickly, I think there's really great comments from everyone today, and I just want to touch on a few members who have talked about trusting the staff. That it is our job to test staff. It is our job to hold them to account, and we do that for the most, I think, very well. I just want to say that staff are the ones that turn up to the coroner's inquest and not us. And that's not a job that any of us would like in the event of a death. And I know that our staff have had that experience. And I think as a city, we need to do whatever we can to avoid that. And look after their well-being by making the good decisions, by always holding them to account, by questioning, and we've done that today. In terms of comms and social media, again, we have to trust staff that they have heard us and they have heard our calls loud and clear for a good comms program. And I guess all things being said and done, nobody likes change. We're all a little uncomfortable with a bump in the road. But if it does save lives, then I would not hesitate to say that someone who has lost either a family member, a loved one through a car accident or been killed on a bike or pedestrian because of speed would wholeheartedly welcome a bump in the road any day. So we'll do that on hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Do you want?
And those dissenting?
And
the motion is carried, noting that Councillor Bidder and Councillor Hamilton are dissenting.
great, thanks everyone. Right, let's move on to item 9 and then we will break after this one for morning tea. So we're on page 131 and this is just an update on the surf projects. Now, we did, just to provide some context, we had a briefing as a request from this committee and elected members put forward their concerns. That we looked at the entire list of projects and collectively put forward, I think it was about 12 or so-ish projects on a list that we wanted a closer look at. So you will see the first 3 of those on page 131. And before I do hand over to the team, I just wanted you to look at page 169 within this report, as you're going to always, that's the entire list of surf projects in the 37 million. And then you will see, very helpful graph, see, I can't even get to the page myself there, 169. You will see under the blue heading ITC approval, that's our committee's approval. The green in there are the ones that we as a collective at the briefing said, hey, we want to have a little bit of a closer look at these particular projects as we go. Oh, no, sorry, the other way around. The green have been signed off. The grey and the white are the ones that we want a closer look at. And we've got 3 of those today. So I hope I haven't stolen your thunder, team. Over to you.
A little bit, but we'll carry on. Thank you anyway for that fantastic introduction, Madam Chair. So, look, thanks for the opportunity to bring the SURF program to you. It is, as you're aware, it's a large program. It's moving at considerable pace. So there's a number of decisions we require today to help keep us moving at that pace that we require to ensure we deliver everything by the 30th of June 2024. So, yeah, first up, this is the first, I suppose, formal report, showcasing everything we're doing, giving you updates of where things are at. Each Infrastructure and Transport Committee will bring an update report to you. So a bit of a test today. If you like the format, that's great. If you don't, tell us if you don't like it. We'll make those changes, and the next report will ensure those changes are reflected in that report. So the purpose of the report is to bring to you 3 projects for macroscope approval. They're embedded into the report, but also some we've got some recommendations up there about contract stuff, so we can ensure that we get certain things moving fast with suppliers, and that's really it while we're here today. So happy to take questions, and I've got Kelly Stokes with me to answer the curly contract questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. I'll start with probably a more straightforward one. Thanks, Martin. There's some good projects in here, obviously. I was pleasantly surprised to see a separated path in Heafy Street. Is that right? So it's a separated cycle lane, or what is that?
That's correct. It's fully separated cycle facility, off-road. There's plenty of space there to be able to do that.
That's awesome. Credit where credit is due. I am concerned to see an in-lane bus stop in the south end of Anglesey Street. I wonder if you could talk through that. You mentioned in the report that drivers find it difficult to merge back into the lane, but it's such a quiet end of Anglesey. I wouldn't have thought that was an issue.
Through the chair, I mean, yeah, great question. Thank you for raising that. And it has been a project that has raised a few eyebrows amongst the elected members and some members of the community when we went out to consultation. The reason that we're promoting it is because currently the Orbiter service does not stop there. It wants to stop there, but the regional council tell us that drivers, particularly during busy periods, cannot get into the right lane to then turn right at the roundabout to head down onto Anzac Parade. So they don't stop there. They haven't done for well over a year. And that's causing a few issues for the regional council and actually people who want to get onto that service at that stop, particularly people who have gone to the supermarket and picked up shopping. So that's the main reason why we're promoting that. There are other reasons around safety at the pedestrian crossing as well, where we've got at times 2 lanes of cars coming through that crossing, which, it should only be a single lane through that crossing, but particularly at more busy times, we've got 2 lanes of cars coming through, which creates pedestrian safety issues.
There's a lot of the rest of that scope work makes sense, but because of the picture you've provided here, I don't get a bigger bird's eye view. So one question I have is, does this proposed crossing align with the countdown one? So there's a symmetry there?
The crossing's already in place. It's just that we want to build the curb line out so we can control the flow of traffic through the crossing and also allow the bus to pick up the passengers that want to use that, particularly Orbiter users, so it can then just travel forward into that right-hand lane and turn right at the roundabout.
So question, on Google Earth, I can get a clearer macroscope and see that a clear area for the bus lane, but you're saying the bus hasn't gone in there for a year.
Some bus services do use that stop. The ones that go straight up Anglesey Street will use that stop, but the Orbiter doesn't because it can't get into that right-hand lane to make that right turn at the roundabout currently because the cars won't let the bus out.
Chair, I just want to signal that I don't feel comfortable based on some of the anecdotal stuff I've heard today to support the motion in its entirety and would like to separate that element out, however we might do that.
Yeah, I can happily do that.
Just one more question, Martin, on Tristram Street, which was obviously quite a busy arterial and quite congested peak times. We've now got a crossing under that bridge around the Girls High. There's some sort of, I saw some, and then there's another one down, obviously, to support the ACC development, and then potentially a further stop-go crossing in this report down south.
Yeah,
So
that's further south on Tristram Street. Is that what you're talking?
yeah,
Yep.
it's in this in these scopes
Yes.
here.
Yep.
So tell me what's the data around that? And I know when we have pedestrian crossings, people often say pedestrian pushes it and the traffic stops, like at the base. Is it, and we use algorithms and all this stuff, are we going to be more supportive of traffic at peak times than stopping it for one pedestrian every time they push the button? Are they going to have tolerance to wait a few more minutes, in peak traffic?
Within the traffic controller units, you can sort of put in into the system where every time a pedestrian presses the button, it doesn't automatically change in their favour. It can wait for a while. So the technology's there to do that. We'd have to look at each site on its own merit.
So it hasn't been considered at this point.
The pedestrian crossing that's in this report on Anglesey Street South, Tristram Street, on just north of the Anzac roundabout, we are promoting that as a light controlled crossing at that particular location, not a zebra. So with a zebra, each time a pedestrian approaches a zebra, the traffic has to stop. With a light control crossing, you've got a little bit more control about who has the priority.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking or querying is when we were potentially going to do that Dutch roundabout, we paused, we got another peer review and actually thought that wasn't the best solution for that roundabout. And now I'm saying we've now put in 2 more intersections further up the road and now a third one. Have we considered the network impacts based on?
Well, we will do as we go through the design process, yes, most definitely. This is still early concepts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Thompson?
After that excellent questioning, I have momentarily forgotten my question.
Back to you.
Well, I think it may be back. Martin, just into Killarney Road, roundabout, there is like pinch point, I guess, or it seems to be like it narrows quite a lot when you're going around the corner on the shared path around the roundabout. Did we, like at this stage, it would take too much time to be acquiring land and things, but what considerations were given around that?
Look, we did look at that very, very carefully because, shared paths. I mean, if we can make them, particularly in this type of environment, sort of 3.5 to 4 meters wide, that's our ideal. Unfortunately, when we're retrofitting in these types of circumstances without purchasing property, it's very difficult to get that ideal in. And look, we talked through with our safety engineers, and the conclusion was that it was basically over for such a short distance that we were prepared to accept a less than ideal situation just for a short distance.
Okay. So you think there'd still be good enough sightline for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked to the safety engineers about that. It's been through that process. So we've reached a situation where we're all comfortable with.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Just a follow-on question from Ryan. You said in the detailed design work, you'd look at the network impact. Is that what I understood you to say?
We'll consider the impact on the network overall, yeah. But I mean, I suppose the bottom line is the purpose of the SURF program is to get more people walking and cycling. Yes, we need to consider the impact on the network, but we've got identified point where people are crossing regularly at that Tristram Street end, the southern end. It's well used as a link through to the central city for walking and cycling. Therefore, it's an area that we should focus our efforts on for crossing that supports safer crossing for walkers and cyclists. But we have to consider the impact of anything we do, particularly on these busier routes, on how the network performs. And that's when Robin and I have deep and meaningful discussions about that sort of stuff.
And so say you did that work and you found that it was having a massive impact on that busier road. Do we find out about that, or do you just sort of...
Oh, look, we need to be transparent with you. You know, we can't, if we're not being transparent with you, that's not building trust between us and yourselves. So if we find out it's going to have a huge impact on the network and cause major congestion problems, we need to come and talk to you about it. And that's why we talked to you about the Dutch roundabout at Tristram Collingwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on the Anglesey one. Sorry, I'll just find my page. You talked about the curb will be built out. At the moment, because I know cars form two rows.
Yep.
Way back beyond that.
Yep.
So by building the curb out, we're essentially creating a bottleneck of one lane before it becomes two into the roundabout. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, look, I've spent a lot of time at that roundabout observing driver behaviour. The congestion is actually won't be caused by the curb build out. The congestion is actually caused by the roundabout. People aren't able to access onto the roundabout, particularly at peak time, because of the sheer volume of vehicles circulating around the roundabout. By doing what we're doing, it's going to make it safe for pedestrians using the crossing, and B, it allowed the Orbiter to stop at that stop and pick up passengers who actually want to use the Orbiter service, particularly those that have been at to Countdown doing their shopping. The congestion is a point that we have looked at, but when you actually observe it on site, the congestion is not caused by the crossing or the bus stop or anything like that. Even if we build the bus stop out, it's actually caused by the sheer volume of traffic on the roundabout, on the circulating area, because some of the high flow arms onto that roundabout are Anglesey Street coming southbound, turning onto Cobham Drive, and vehicles coming up from Anzac Parade onto the circulating area. That's where the congestion is happening.
Just two questions. Get it about the congestion being the roundabout itself. Have we looked at the pile up, cars building up because of the reduction in lanes from 2 to 1, and how far back that would go? Would that have an impact further back?
No, we haven't looked at that, but from my experience, it will have a minimal impact, less than minor. It may add a few extra cars to the queue, but say that isn't the problem at that location. It's how the roundabout is managed.
Okay. And have we looked at the bus stop being further to the right, on the other side of the crossing, so that the Orbiter can get into traffic without needing?
We did do that when we first looked at the design, and it wouldn't pass a safety audit because the bus would stop and then obscure pedestrians using the crossing. So there's a significant safety issue by putting bus stops on the upstream side of a pedestrian facility. It's not good practice.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Couple of questions. Let's start with Killarney Road and the roundabout there. And then there's a few other items in the SURF where there are shared paths. My experience of that is that sometimes there are users, the pedestrians and others, when I'm cycling, who, if they're not aware that it's a shared path, can be a bit grumpy with cyclists and other wheeled users there. And I know that there's some great examples up at Ruakura where we've put the decal onto the path. Is that kind of treatment going to be in these areas as well, so that it's really clear for everybody that this is for all?
Yes, is the answer. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll be using standard sort of road paint markings or etched markings. There's a lot of stuff that Wakatai now got on in their manuals and guidance notes that we can use to just highlight to users that is a shared space.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be doing all that stuff in these locations to make it quite clear.
Yeah, great. And even though there are some narrower ones rather than wide, it can be really clear about it.
Yes.
Okay. Are there rules around, giving way, speed, etc., in those kind of areas? Do we have that kind of guidance from Wakakotahi as well?
Well, I mean, any shared facility has to go through our bylaw process, and these have already been through the traffic panel, and they're in our bylaw. So, I mean, the rules are around, like anything, is around behaviours. If people are cycling through there recklessly, they could actually be the police could actually prosecute if something happened. So, yeah, it's sharing that space and showing respect to all users in that space. Yeah,
And we'll be using the skills of Loredana to help us get that out into the public.
Yes,
these changes.
Yes, certainly, and obviously our transport education team do a lot of work in that that space as well. About behaviours in these environments.
Cool. And then, actually, no, I'll leave those questions about the inland bus stop. I'm quite happy with that. Well, we've got another one around the corner from there, haven't we? Up in Palmerston Street. That is
Yes, that's
the
correct.
same kind of
outside the tennis courts down Palmerston Street. The difference, I suppose, between that Palmerston Street one and this on Anglesey Street South is that when the bus stops at this Anglesey Street South one, the vehicles will have to wait behind. The Palmerston Street one is slightly different because vehicles can pass that if there's no traffic coming in the opposing direction. If there is traffic coming in the opposing direction, yes, then the vehicles have to wait behind the bus.
And so in this instance, it stopped because of those pink
The
treatments, which are, what are they? They're proposed traffic islands.
Traffic islands, yeah. And look, we had some feedback on the islands and the shape of the islands from the lawyers who work in the building next to that
Yeah,
bus
I know.
stop.
Yep.
And so initially they were objecting to the project. We did meet them and have that discussion. And they were, as long as we slightly tweaked the shape of the island, which we're doing through the design process, they're happy to support the scheme going forward.
So that they're able to get out their driveway and turn right.
Yes, they can. I mean, our advice to them would be always turn left because that's the safest option.
Keep left. That's my advice.
But that would be our advice going forward. But we are tweaking the island, so if they wish to turn right, they can turn right. Yes.
Okay, and that we shouldn't expect to see a ute driver going up over the island and around it, perhaps.
Hopefully not. But
Driver.
I've seen a few ute drivers in Grey Street when it's backed up
Okay.
that they'll go over an island.
All right.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Mayor Southgate.
Just was interested in that whole width of the cycle lanes, these ones that have been improved. Some parts are still narrow, ordinary pavement width.
yeah, look, I mean, they are pinched down to, a couple of metres wide in certain areas, but our ideal is anywhere between 3.5 and 4 metres for a shared facility. That's what we're aiming for. And if you look at the ones we've recently put in at Tristram Collingwood, you'll see we've managed to get that extra space for those shared areas, which is much more comfortable for pedestrians and cyclists to use.
So that was going to be my next question. So everywhere that you've looked at where there wasn't a possibility of widening the pavement, the footpath that was going to be used as a shared space now, you will be doing that?
Yeah, where we can, yes. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions from me, and I am on page 141. This is the Killarney Road, Greenwood Street to Western Rail Trail. Just in terms, can you give me some some comfort on the feedback generally from the businesses, and if there was a main concern, what was it and how you addressed it?
Yeah, good question. We have engaged with every single business down there face to face.
Yeah.
So a lot of door knocking and conversations, which has been really, really useful because it's given us valuable information going forward for the design about how those businesses operate day to day. The feedback has been around obviously parking.
Mm-hmm.
They say the parking is pretty chaotic down there.
It is. Mm.
So they've asked us to look at how we manage that parking going forward. They obviously want to retain as much car parking as possible, but they do say if you can manage it better, that would be fantastic for them, which was good feedback. The other thing that came back was the safety around the intersection of Ellis and Killarney, that crossroads there. And so we are looking at how to improve that. And we're looking at the option of putting a roundabout in there, which the businesses would support, just so they can make those right turns in and out safely.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll also help manage the speed, which they say is a bit of a problem as well coming through that area. So far, the engagement has been really positive. We've got all the contacts now. And we're working up the concepts at the moment. And at the point where we're comfortable with those concepts, we'll certainly be re-engaging with those businesses to get their feedback as well.
So in terms of managing parking, so I don't want to take the limelight from our TV star here. So that may look like enforcement, obviously, at some point, or management somehow at some point. Do we have that and the roundabout? And yes, I mean, I travel that road several times every single day, so very familiar with it. Alice Street's a nightmare, particularly when there's sports on. So does the budget cover those two responses?
We're looking at it at the moment. So the parking management will be using all the tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be mainly around, do we mix the parking spaces up to be some to be all day, some to be time limited? Be looking at that sort of stuff and just marking them out a little bit better.
Yeah. And there was a service lane being suggested in the.
Yes.
What was the feedback on that?
Bit mixed. We're taking that back to the drawing board. We are looking at some costings at the moment. We think adding the service lane in and all the associated elements of that will probably push us over the budget quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the service lane potentially could be dropped going forward.
But there wasn't a huge desire to.
Not as strong as we'd hoped. So, but it's we're keeping an open mind at the moment as we go through this early concepts.
And I think is it right that the majority of those businesses, anecdotally, it looks to me like they have off-street parking.
Most of them have some level of off-street parking, but the type of businesses they are, it does spill out onto the public road. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
incredibly busy here. Yeah, it's okay, that's great. And then just my last question was just there's somewhere in your report. And I know in the Frankton Station there's going to be a bike facility, bike park thing. And then on page 155, so the picture there says example of bike parking and shelter. But you need to manage our expectations, particularly mine and Sarah's and Maxine's and Anna's and Louisa's. Are we going to get that?
Well, it does look fancy, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
Let's be honest. I'm not sure if you get the hanging baskets.
Weatherproof.
I'll
allow that.
But you'll certainly get a double stack bike facility there. It might not be as long as that one.
No.
But it will be a double stack facility.
And it will be weatherproof.
Yes, it will be.
Safety and all of it will be ratcheting up the service level on parking your bike.
Yes, so there'll be improved CCTV, improved lighting. And this project is pretty close to going ahead for construction. So
Great. Okay.
hoping you might just approve this one today and then
Yeah.
we can get going.
Just on that, so I couldn't see anywhere in here the new footpath, new lighting desperately need that. At grade crossing, all of those things. So nothing is, contrary to my support for the bike shelter, nothing there is reducing car parking, is it?
Not at all, no.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Because just sharing a personal story like Councillor Sarah did before, I went on the Heritage train the other day and there were 8 carriages packed.
No, it's good.
And the majority of the riders of that fabulous excursion were 55 and over. And many with mobility issues. And so the car parking was absolutely packed. So, yeah. And just a plug for the Heritage train, was fantastic. It's just awesome. All right, great. Councillor Van Osten, last question.
It is last question,
Yeah.
actually. It's on the back of your question about the bike parking at the railway station. During the annual plan, we had, I'm trying to think, a big bike, was that the name of them?
Big Street Bikers.
Big Street Bikers, yeah, presented to us with, in conjunction with Locky Docky. Is that this kind of treatment that we might be able to see in conjunction with this?
We won't be putting it at this location, but we have been working with Big Street Bikers for a couple of years on potential locations around Hamilton, and not just on public road space, but also in private locations as well. They're keen to get into Hamilton. They already got two lots of Locky Docks in Hamilton already, one at Centre Place and one at the university.
Yeah, we were all pretty excited, I think, as I recall. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Hamilton. Ideally more of us. Okay, so do you have a suggestion then for Project 27?
Yeah, Chair, like not wanting to be a stick in the mud,
Yeah, no.
but just wanting a bit more information before we approve that macroscope as per the resolution.
Yep.
We heard from staff there was, that we heard things like the buses haven't gone there for a year, but that's the first I've ever heard of it, and I dare say others around the room.
Yep.
So I think it'd be good to have a little bit more understanding around what could be a significant impact on, even if it's to your next committee.
Yeah, okay. Let's just ask in terms of timing for that. Are we able to accommodate that with?
I suppose questions for you, Madam Chair, is what level of information are you looking for us to bring back to the committee?
So I think what Councillor Hamilton's just outlined in terms of probably data on I guess why it stopped, why the service stopped, what the ridership was, perhaps what's the need now. Are we just putting in place something that used to be there for the sake of it, or is there really a need?
Well, the regional council do tell us there is a need for that.
Yeah,
so I mean, they're the ones that have asked us for a little while to try and sort this problem out, and Surf has thrown up the opportunity.
Be good to see the data of the history of that. Are you looking for options or different options?
I just don't have comfort around supporting it today, but I don't want to not support the whole thing. So even if it could be separated as a further motion or an amendment or...
All right, let's do that way then. So Amy's worded up. In terms of funding with Waka Kotahi, does a delay put that at risk, or are we able to move that project sort of down a little bit?
Kelly here for
Yeah,
that.
Kelly, if you can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be hesitant to push this one out because it is one of the first ones that we have slated for construction. And in terms of a project, there is a demand there. So for the information that you're seeking, would that be okay to come back with some further background information if this has got high-level macroscope approval? Can we run those things concurrently?
So I guess the option that's being asked is, can we continue with the detailed design and in conjunction bring the information back? So design, not construction, or am mindful that next committee is the 31st of July. And so totally acknowledge your reasoning for the information. It's just trying to balance that with the regional council information that we need to gather to bring back.
So
things
detailed
on
design
board.
of this particular project is coming on the 31st anyway?
The detailed design is commencing in a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that will be reported. So this is just macroscope approval, right?
Correct.
Because this particular project is on the list that EMs want to keep an eye over.
Correct.
So it could be an in principle support for Councillor Hamilton, and then you could bring that additional background information.
Yeah, I mean,
So that doesn't slow anything down, but it gives Councillor Hamilton and others comfort that they can make a final decision, and they can still back out of that final decision if they wish with the extra information. I think that's what is being sought.
so what we could do, Madam Chair, is the attachment that's got the details in for each project.
Yeah.
We could provide you an updated report on this particular project in that, with the additional information from WRC in that attachment.
Yes, for the 31st
For
of
the
July.
31st
Yeah.
of July.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we could keep going with the design, that would be really, really
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay, let's just still do it as a separate motion. Scroll down again, just to, oh, okay, yeah.
Removing it from this part.
Is this the information that we need? If it was readily available, would it be possible to get it today if we deferred this item to the afternoon, or is it something that's going to
I
take
wouldn't
more
think it would
collation?
be readily available, would it?
Well, we actually do have quite a bit of information on this site, and the information we've had to give to Waka Kotahi to justify the location is more extensive than the summary that you have here.
I don't, yeah, no, because it just doesn't give members enough time to really have a look at it and time to read through it. I don't see that would be great governance.
Could we workshop it maybe, or provide information at a Access Hamilton meeting
Yeah.
is soon?
Look, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Councillor Hamilton. Let's break for morning tea now. Yep, and we'll see if we can work through.
Okay.
Because the other alternative is a motion can just include all of it, and then his motion can be voted on separately. Okay. We'll come back at 20 past. We have I'm trying to make this work as best as we can, but I'm going to test first. Do we have a motion? Do we have someone who can move and second the staff recommendation with that project in there? First, yeah. Okay, so we have a mover, Councillor Casey Cox, and seconder Councillor Thompson, with project 27, which is the Anglesey Street South bus stop in it. Okay, so this makes it a bit easier. Then we have an amendment that will bring back, let's make that an amendment, that will bring back with the detailed information just on project 27, more information to the July Infrastructure Committee meeting. We'll get that up in a moment, in a momento. Una momento. Because it all may be a moot point depending on the numbers around the table anyway, but we still have to allow. Yes.
Amy had mentioned that we basically, the motion as it stood was okay. They were just going to make a note to bring back information, but it didn't materially affect the outcome at this point.
So do you just want to know? I thought you wanted an option like conditional support though for that particular project. If we just note it, it's kind of full support, or not, or if you just simply vote against it. I can do whatever you wish, Councillor Hamilton.
Okay. We'll go with the separate motion if it's
Go
cleaner.
separate,
I
okay.
didn't want to make it confusing.
Yeah, I know, I understand. So let's be really clear here. So the motion approves the macro scope of the projects, the 3 projects that are listed, but they will still come back in a regular report at the next committee anyway. And then at that time, if the will of the committee was for whatever reason to say that's it, we're done with that project, don't want to do it anymore. That is, I know funding, I know all of that, understand all of that, but that would be their democratic right to do that.
That's correct.
So we may not need your motion then. Okay, so let's get rid of the amendment. We've got the motion on the board. We fully understand that those 3 projects will come in to the next committee anyway, and there will be a further opportunity to support or not at that point. Clear as mud. Thank you. Great chairing. All right.
So just wanted clarity that the 3 projects will continue into the macroscope design processes, but we will continue to bring it back with the additional information.
Yep. But welcome to the world of politics. At any time, the politicians can go, no thanks very much. And that's just the way of the world. We know that it drives the team crazy sometimes, but that is our job.
There is a cost impact.
Yes, of course.
Of the work between now and then.
Yep.
And should we not go ahead with the project, what risk is there that Waka Kotahi won't support the project and Hamilton City Council will have to fund that work
or we
instead.
just don't do with the project. So let's not get into that now, but we understand all of that, and that actually formed a lot of the conversation at the briefing and right throughout this. It is what it is. Okay, all right. So that's been moved and seconded. Councillor Casey Cox is the mover. Would you like to debate?
I don't have too much to say, just that thank you to the staff for the work that you've done, and that's exciting in terms of the potential to promote mode shift, which these projects are all about. And the question of congestion will pretty much come up every single time we talk about these projects. But that's part of the dilemma of our city going forward, is that congestion will become more of an issue, and it will become more of an issue if we don't invest in mode shift, which these projects do. So very happy to support the motion.
Thank you. And as the seconder, Councillor Thompson.
Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much to the transport team working on this. What I've heard is that we're doing some amazing engagement, and I guess that can happen when we actually resource engagement properly. But it's really good to hear we're knocking on the doors of all of these businesses. We're having face-to-face discussions. I had one of the objectors approach me on the street for Anglesey bus stop to say, hey, what's happening? And, you know, they weren't so sure about the project, but then we've met with them and obviously they're now happy with the changes we've made. So, you know, I think that face-to-face approach, taking the time to speak with people directly, is really valuable. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of that work going into that. And yeah, to Anna's point, we know that over the next few decades, our city's going to increase in population dramatically, and the modelling is showing that congestion peak times will over double. We'll have a significant increase in the number of hotspots for congestion around the city. And that's if we're just not really doing anything. So we can look at these projects and worry that they're going to cause congestion, but ultimately the growth of people living in the city and driving cars is what's causing congestion. And by providing alternatives, we hopefully move some people to other modes that they're happy with using, and then make it easier for those who are driving to still be able to drive. So yeah, congestion is going to be an issue, and we're not going to tackle it by shying away from making changes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bidder.
Deputy Mayor. I support the Western Rail Trail project, and no issues at all with that. The Queens Ave Killarney Road one, raised platforms on entry to roundabouts. I can understand how slowing down cars leads to safety. Raised platforms on exits of roundabouts has the risk of causing congestion as the people come to a very slow speed and the roundabouts get locked up, particularly on the small roundabouts like this one. So I implore staff to, if they can't get rid of the raised platform on the exit lane, to at least have the entry ramp to the raised platform as long and as easier a gradient as possible, because we can have slow moving cars, but we really don't want them slamming on the brakes as they're coming out of the roundabout. In-lane bus stops, if we compare those to our earlier decision on the Gordonton Road roundabout, where we are making changes for extreme illegally speeding dangerous drivers, you will get more drivers desperately and illegally passing the bus before it gets to the bus stop. To be consistent with the Gordonton roundabout vote, Council needs to say no to in-lane bus stops. In this particular situation, I would add that there is a very large verge that would allow a redesign of that bus stop so that it is out of lane, and the occasional driver, such as myself, does actually let buses out and rejoin the traffic.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for trying to indulge what is trying to be a pragmatic way forward. I get a little bit nervous when we have a report that says talk to police and HCBA and the results are mixed, but then we don't have the evidence, we don't see it. And I know with a lot of the stuff we talk to the people on the corner, but we don't talk about the wider impact. Everyone travels everywhere in the city, so it's really difficult when you're doing comms to not think about the wider impact. And that was the first time I've heard about a bus not stopping. So I kind of feel with a lot of the SURF funding, it's solutions looking for a problem. We've got $30 million that we didn't have, and now we're trying to spend it. And that's where we make rush decisions. We've seen the impact of that with Innovating Streets. We've seen that with Bunty's Memorial Bridge. I get a little bit nervous with Tristram Street when we talk about another crossing when we've just imported 2 and we haven't even really considered the traffic network assessment. With respect to staff, it wasn't staff that pulled out of the Collingwood roundabout. It was the fact that elected members made them get it peer reviewed first. And that's our job ultimately, because we're accountable to our ratepayers. And I do get a little bit nervous with this mode shift talk when it's a little bit of a utopia that we're going to rumble strip people out of cars and into walking. It's not even practical for parents when they've got kids in sport and school. We are going to get more congested as we grow as a city, and we have to work pragmatically through that, not just try and stop them with intersections and raise safety platforms and this talk of safety, which is true, but we need to be practical and pragmatic.
Thank you. Councillor Van Osten.
Thanks very much. Look, I am completely in support of a climate emergency response fund projects. I think rather than being projects looking for a problem, they're in fact known problems. We've had for years Bike Waikato coming to us and telling us about the gaps that are in our network and the problems that they have navigating the intersections. Many of these projects are designed to overcome those very things. There are other biking groups in Hamilton. There's also the Big Street Bike who have told us about opportunities that we can use to partner with them, and I look forward to those ideas coming up as well. And so rather than being a car-centric city, we're looking to be able to offer some real choices, some safe choices, and an alternative to just getting the keys to your car and getting in it to make those trips. So those things need to be much more available. We need to be able to stop at the bus stop that is the most convenient. If you really want to be able to put people onto a bus, it's got to be going to the place that they want to get off at and do whatever it is. They're shopping, they're visiting, their doctor, their lawyer. All of those things are really important when you're getting on a bus. So I'm completely in support of these 3 projects. And the last thing I'll finish with is that constantly reviewing the stop go button on these projects puts the whole of it in construction risk. And, you know, the worst thing that could happen is not being able to spend that $38 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Rolfe.
Thank you. Look, I get why this program exists. And yes, we want to offer people safe choices in terms of mode choice. Biking, yes, we have very strong biking advocates in the city. Biking is not for everyone. As Councillor Ryan said, you know, young kids, contractors, not everyone can ride a bike. To be honest, you know, Hamilton actually rains a lot compared to other cities like Christchurch, and it's not the best mode of transport if it's raining all the time. Inlane bus stops, I'm not in favor of. I think in terms of congestion, we shouldn't knowingly add pressure to our network. And I feel like that's what we are doing sometimes. We need to think about the economic impact of slowing people down. I was actually talking to a contractor who works in Auckland, and he was saying he only schedules 1 job per day, which I laughed at because I said, oh, if you saw my calendar, I've got about at least 6 appointments per day all around town. And he said, you just can't get to more than 1 person per day in Auckland. And that's a huge economic impact on his business. I'm uncomfortable with time pressures. I think we should take it slow, make the right decision instead of a quick decision. Regardless of where the funding is coming from, 37 million or not, the same people are paying for it. And we owe it to our residents to actually be making the right decisions for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Southgate.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the work done on the list to all of those people who delved deep, and I wasn't one of those, but I know that under your leadership there was a lot of work done to drill into each and every one of those projects. And when we come to these committees, I guess we need to be mindful of what we've done in this structure of this council and giving people leadership in the detail of different things, and we have to respect some of that. So I am going to support it. I think some of the projects look excellent. I have unashamedly always been a fan of separated cycle lanes and of linking up things that are already working and extending those. Excuse me. As opposed to the brave new space things necessarily. It's build on the success, do what we know that works. You do have to try a few new things now and then. You have to crack an egg to make an omelette. And so some of the new things make us sometimes a bit twitchy and uncomfortable, and that's reasonable. I have some concerns about the in-lane bus stop, just the mechanisms of it. But, I'm trying to have hold the faith with the detail when we see it, that it will ease our concerns. I have to say, around the world, many, many places around the world, even in the main road, a bus can stop and cars must stop. In fact, they have those flags that go out, those little indicator thingies, and you're fined if you overtake a bus. So it's just changing the way we do transport in the city. And I agree with Ryan to the extent that, we need to transition in a logical, practical and sensible way. We need to take people on the journey. And I think we've all agreed that at times we've not quite done that to our best ability, and we're learning in that space. So, but overall, a very solid piece of work. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership across that.
Thank you. Just a few comments from me. I am acutely aware as a car driver that our city is, and we are asking our citizens to bear with us as they approach road cone fatigue. And even as chair of this committee, I know that when I am on the road and I'm driving and I come around to yet another electronic billboard saying that there are roadworks here and the road's going to be closed on a particular evening. But the flip side of that is look how great our city is looking at the moment, with new pedestrian facilities, with new cycling facilities. And Councillor Naidoo-Rauf said biking's not for everyone. No one's saying that. No one around this table has ever said that. But it's about giving some equity to those who want to bike, to those using a mobility scooter, to those who choose to, instead of getting in their cars to drive 2Ks to the gym, not looking at anyone in particular, will be able to safely cycle on a separated path. That's what it is. It's about giving other people who that choice to think, shall I take the car? Shall I walk? Shall I get on the bike? It's not for everyone. We're not saying that as a busy business person with 8 meetings all over the city that we're going to say, right, that's it, you can't ever use your car again. We're just saying for this one close to your office, you might want to walk, and here's a beautiful shared footpath that you can walk on. It is about giving people choice. And I just remind us all how lovely our streets and our neighbourhoods and living locally was through lockdown. There were so many cars on paths and footpaths and roads, and so many people out walking, and that was a really great thing, living locally like that. So this is about giving people choice, nothing more. Councillor Van Oosten, Councillor Casey Cox, would you like a right of reply?
Just a quick mention of the in-lane bus stop. I went to the School Strikes for Climate on Friday, and one of the main requests of councils was to improve public transport. So I see in-lane bus stops as a way of giving priority to buses, and we actually need to do that for the future, for the reasons that everyone has talked about already, choice, but also reducing congestion. So just acknowledging them and their advocacy that fits with this.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go to show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And those opposed, please raise your hand.
Motion is carried, noting that councillor Bennett, Naidoo and Hamilton are dissenting.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to item 10. We're cracking on at a great rate of knots, people, so don't slow us down. That's to the politicians, not the team. And we're on page 171. So this is the draft speed management plan review. Approval to go out to consultation. Robin, we're in your hands.
Good morning, elected members. So the speed
sorry, we've just lost quorum. Have we? What, with Sarah leaving or?
And Paula.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We still don't have quorum, do we? No, Louisa's, no, she's not.
Sick. She's left.
Okay, so the meeting will lapse. Yeah, she might be using the facilities. What? What do they call it? No. God, this is just bad. Time is of the essence. Councillor Van Alsten. Okay, there's one easier. Right, we were, so we cannot lose anyone right now. Yeah, okay. Page 171. Oh, sorry, we're already there, aren't we, Robin? Yeah. Okay.
So good morning, elected members. The speed management plan, the draft speed management plan, this plan is setting out our proposed work for the next long-term plan, the 24-27 plan. This is a piece of work that we're required by legislation to get done now so that it can feed into the regional land transport plan, which Deputy Mayor Angela talked about in her chair's report this morning. So the plan basically sets out what we're looking to do in that period. And in short, it is to carry on delivering our safer speed areas. So that's the 40k speed limits. To continue working and doing work around our schools. So we're aiming to have all of the schools with a 30k speed limit early next year, but there's still some physical works around that. We're looking to carry on rolling out the 30Ks at shopping precincts. Marai have also been identified, and we'll be working with the various trusts that run those to determine what their needs are so that we can incorporate that into that year. And then there'll be some speed limits associated with various projects that we have coming up. So at this stage, the intention is to consult, pending approval today, to go out and consult. We will have hearings in August at the traffic panel and then to bring back to this committee in September for approval of that plan, such that it and the work that it outlines can be included into that regional land transport plan. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Robin. Are there any questions? Councillor Casey Cox?
Yes, I was first. Just in terms of the consultation, I guess initially I was a bit confused because it seemed to suggest that we were asking for approval on the amendments that we've put forward, but not asking for people's opinions on those amendments. But can you just clarify that people can make submissions on broader issues that they see around speed as part of the consultation, or?
Yes, so we're definitely looking for that sort of feedback. So as part of our program, particularly with the safer speed areas, those 40k areas, community feedback, community requests plays a really important role in determining the order that we roll those out. We've tried to be reasonably open with the program such that we've given people an indication of what we're wanting to do, but we do have that long-term plan on what we're hoping to achieve in that sort of 10-year period. With including both of those pieces of work, Waka Kotahi are happy for us to have some flexibility. So if we do get some strong calls from an area, then we can certainly respond to that.
Okay.
The other thing is that this is a process that we have to do every 3 years, like our long-term plan. So the feedback that we get from this one helps us inform future ones as well.
Yeah, cool. And just a quick question. I did notice the principles, or I think it's called principles. Yep. Residential roads will be constructed at a 40k, but in the guide, it says local streets 30, but constructing a street for 40 doesn't mean you wouldn't have a 30k speed limit necessarily, right?
Yes, so the guidance that came out last year around the 30 kilometre for residential areas, that has come out since those principles were developed.
Okay.
The approach that we've been taking is to try and get all of our safer speed areas in place with the 40k speed limit. With the school 30Ks that we're putting in, they're going to be covering some quite reasonable areas. It's not just going to be immediately outside the school gate. We're trying to pick up where the bigger groups of kids are walking and that sort of thing. So that's a really good starting point to get into increasing the number of 30s that we get out there. We found when we first introduced 40k an hour for schools that was a a process that people could understand and support. So it's about taking people along on the journey, recognising we still have a lot of residential streets that have 50. So sort of completing that piece of work before we come back and then have another look.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Alston.
Finishing your answers on that 50 to 40, I guess part of the rollout of the 40 into different areas in Hamilton is based on, I guess, prioritisation of what we know about the areas. Is there anything more that you can tell us about that prioritisation list?
So we've got quite a process that we work through to prioritise those areas. So that includes looking at the crashes, reported crashes that we're getting through there. We also have a look at the speeds that are happening in those areas. The customer feedback, those requests that we get come in are really valuable as well, because that helps us identify areas where the community are experiencing pain or difficulty or, you know, problems. So we certainly feed that quite strongly in, but also recognising places like the fact that there are schools, retirement villages, those sorts of things, facilities that are going to see increased numbers of people walking and cycling, will help with prioritising the work.
And I guess that's about working with the willing, is that right?
Correct.
On the feedback form, it says, help us understand the reasons for your response on a number of things. Is that where people would put in that the area is problematic, or that
yes,
they've got a lot of kids walking to school through there? Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's an opportunity to engage with the community to try and understand what their thoughts are around it. There is the ability at any point in time for people to contact us about requesting those lower speeds as well.
And then we record all of that data.
Yes.
As a part of that prioritisation process
Yes.
for the future. And areas can go up and down according to perhaps that.
Yes, very much. Yes. So the Story Ave area, for example, was one that was lower down in our priority list. But when we had the petition come in and some strong calls for there, that was one that was moved up in response to that.
Great. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Mayor Southgate.
In terms of the rollout, Steve has been going on now for years, zones, and I've seen 30s as well. Can you tell me what enforcement data is telling us, or compliance data is telling us about people responding to those speed environments? I know they're not in every place, but I was just wondering, do we do that work to understand, or is it still, you know, in the realm of trying to change behaviour so we're not too worried about it, but we put the signs up, or are we being more?
So the enforcement, any enforcement on speed activities needs to be undertaken by the police, and they have limited resources, and they're focusing them on where they have their highest risks. So they're looking at crash data and that sort of thing. What we do for any of our safer speed areas is we do before and after speed surveys. And we certainly see some good results from that, where we can see the speeds, average speeds within these areas decreasing. And in the early years, we did a number of things where we would put in a particular intervention and monitor that, and then put in a little bit more and see what difference that was making. The feedback that we get from residents in these areas generally is that they notice a decrease in speed. Sometimes it's not as much as they would like. That's where we use our speed trailers to put them out into these communities, and that gives people immediate feedback on what speed they're actually going, to remind them. And that also is positively received from the community when we put that out. So we've got a couple of trailers that basically we move around in response to those requests.
I've seen those in school areas in particular. So do we get any data from the police about any areas where speed is, I know they have limited resource and they're dealing with much more significant issues at the moment, but we spend a lot of money and time trying to change the environment. I'm just trying to get satisfaction that we are making a difference to driver behaviour. And so you're saying the trends of the
The
monitoring
data that we collect is showing, yes, it is having that positive impact.
Have we ever asked the police what their feedback is in terms, I mean, I know they support the lower speeds because for the right reasons they do support it. Have we ever had any feedback to them on any particular routes or concerns, or have we asked for any?
So we consult with the police for any of our speed limit changes, and we have regular contact, particularly with the serious crash unit around where we have crashes occur. The police are supportive of the lowering speed limits getting it right in accordance with the rule.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there were any kind of routes where we've endeavoured to do that and they say, because there's the signage and then there's the engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the police might identify an area that we wanted to be lower speed that just isn't working at the present time. Do that we ever get any of that feedback, or do we? Would they tell us?
Yeah, they will tell us, definitely. Yes, we're in regular contact with them. We have good working relationships with the police. And they have people, their staff will contact us if they see something that they're concerned about. So, and we also pass on, when we have members of the public contact us with concerns, we also pass that information on to the police as well to help them with, working out their deployment.
Thank you. Last question, Madam Chair, is that around the schools, I noticed schools are participating alongside us a lot better with, like putting cones saying, or signs saying you endanger students by parking here, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting any data that suggests that behaviour around schools is improving?
The parking behaviour?
Yeah, the parking and speeding through it, because when people park in the wrong place, it creates all sorts of other issues of people trying to squeeze through or get out of the way or go faster than they should, and so.
Yes, so I guess there's a couple of activities that we do. Certainly, when it comes to speed through schools, that's an area where we do get good support from the New Zealand Police. They are very good at doing their random patrols and through those, that time of day in those locations. When it comes to the parking activity, then we've got our parking team who are going out and trying to do some education prior to some enforcement, as well as our school travel planning team who are working in with the schools, getting information out through school newsletters, those sorts of things, and also I guess getting the information out through the children who are actually the ones who are endangered by some of those behaviours.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Robin, I have a few more questions. Thank you so much for your help with some of those yesterday. With the state highway network, you mentioned we could potentially ask Waka Kotahi to come report to us on the impact of their speed limit changes.
So when Waka Kotahi did the changes to some of the speed limits around the city a few years ago, we as council put in a submission on that, and there was an undertaking that they would do monitoring. So I believe it's appropriate for if this council would like to request them to come along and talk to the impact of that. Yes,
that would be really good. Is that something we could, I guess, just note as a staff action or something? But yeah, I'd be keen to see. And then I guess once we've seen that, we can provide feedback on whether we think some physical changes are required. Okay. In terms of the speed management plan, how much flexibility do we have if, for example, we have funding to then do some extra cycle paths that require, say, a low traffic street, and so then we need to make that 30k an hour. Like, how much flexibility is there over the next couple of years?
So the idea of the plan is to try and provide the community with a good indication of what we're trying to achieve and where. And that's the reason why we include within the plan the map looking at that longer term. We have in the current period had a few sites where even though they weren't specifically listed as a project, when we've looked into it, they were in the plan, and we've talked to Waka Kotahi and they were happy to support that. With the way the rule is set up, if you wanted to do something that was very different to what was in the plan, then you would have to go out and do the consultation process again.
For the whole plan?
Not for the whole plan, for that particular site.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So, and it's like a special consultation, or?
They don't require the special consultative procedure. It's just a formal consultation process. But generally, if we're looking at a project like that, you would look to wrap that in as part of the conversation that you're having with the community anyway, rather than it being a separate, because generally those things go hand in hand. The physical works, the changes that you're doing, along with the speed.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And in terms of Ulster Street, it's interesting that lower speed limit actually caused people to go faster. But I'm just wondering, with speed cameras and the consultation coming up with Waka Kotahi around speed cameras, is that an area where we could consider speed cameras? And what kind of opportunity will we have to provide some input when we are being, I guess, consulted on in terms of speed camera location?
So the management of speed cameras, safety cameras, red light and speed is in the process of changing across from New Zealand Police to Waka Kotahi at the moment. I understand that they should be out consulting with us soon. We have had some early conversations a year or so ago looking at locations where we have known speed issues and where we have known red light running issues. It's not clear at this point exactly how they're going to be determining those locations. They've obviously got a budget, and that has to go across the national program. The indications through the Road to Zero program is that there will be more funding in future years to increase the rollout of the use of safety cameras, but we don't have anything 100% clear at this stage exactly how that's going to be worked through.
Okay, cool, thank you. Very last thing was just the feedback form. I wondered if we could, is there an opportunity to make it slightly clearer what the changes are? Because when I looked at it, I was struggling to kind of compare what the old map and the new one. And then also, is there a way that we could maybe indicate what some of the streets are so people can have get their bearings in terms of looking at the map?
Yes, we can certainly take that on board. We've got Nicola sitting up the back, so she's helping us with all our comms, so we can certainly take that on board.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all of the questions. So we're on page 171, so I'm happy to move. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. I don't have any debate. Councillor Thompson, did you want to? No? All right. So we'll do that on the show of hands. All those in favour?
Motion is carried.
Well, no, hang on. Councillor Hamilton hasn't put his hand up.
That Councillor Hamilton is dissenting. Am I right on that one?
Yeah. We've spoken against a lot today. All right. That's been carried. Thank you. So we're on to the General Manager's report now. There's a lot in here, so I'm not going to do what we did last term, go through item by item, only questions by exception. Otherwise, we will be here for 2 hours just on this one report, as we have done historically. There are a couple of items there. I know particular members will want a bit of touch points on one of those being the Transport Centre. So I know Mayor Southgate's interested in that, as some of us are. So Evelisa, can you present your report and maybe just offer some commentary on that one to get us started? But yes, please, members, just questions on the items by exception would be helpful.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Leary. I am the General Manager's report has summarised a number of items that have occurred. In terms of the staff recommendation that we're seeking today, they are all of the approvals of 2 submissions that have been submitted under the chair's delegation in our committee delegations, and also the approval of the Climate Emergency Response funding for vehicles kilometres travelled program. So this is a new funding allocation program through Waka Kotahi in terms of an application to receive funding in our Tier 1 region. So Tier 1 includes Hamilton City, Waikato Regional Council, Waikato District Council, Waipa District Council, and I believe another council. So it's around the application that we submitted that was jointly done, and for visibility of this committee. The other item Deputy Mayor O'Leary referred to was the Transport Centre. So just to avoid confusion, the Transport Centre project hasn't been paused or put on hold. Back on the 7th of August 2020, the Infrastructure and Operations Committee approved the design process to continue. So our team have been actively going out to tender and seeking design. And so that process is continuing. So hopefully we have a high level update to be brought to the next committee on that matter. So we're trying to balance the design coming back to staff and reviewing that. Just noting that when the LTP was completed in the approval, a certain budget was approved, and of around 7 million, around $8 million. That design, following scope approval with the Infrastructure and Operations Committee, it detailed items that around safety and integrating SIPTED into our design focus. It's going to be the first building in the central city with an accessible toilet and facility. And so we're working through all of those designs, but understanding that the costs from 3 or 4 years ago and construction costs. So we are anticipating there may be a change, but we have been working with Waka Kotahi, who are a co-investment partner in this project. And so they have been on that entire journey with us. And I have Martin here just to correct any information or add any information that you may have. Also just noting in the annual plan, funding was deferred into the future 2024 year onwards. It's anticipated that the design process of the centre will take that entire period of time, but noting elected members in the report under the annual plan in March, it was advised that should we be ready to bring forward that money, that we have the ability to do so through the Finance and Monitoring Committee. So it's almost a juggling time frame to bring the full design back to this committee, and then making sure that we've got the appropriate allocation of funding approvals from committee to commence that project. So pretty exciting. Like it's great to have that project underway and design and the improvements, because we all know it is an area that has been highlighted as a safety risk, and improving the destination of our regional transport, public transport, but also our city transport into that location, I think will be welcomed by all.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Ms. Southgate.
Thank you. Probably have quite a bit of debate to say on that, but just a couple of questions in respect to that 2020 you said. So that was started, the work was started.
It was the business case was approved in 2021.
Business case, yeah, I do recall it
for
from a while
approval.
ago.
Yes, but it was included in the annual, the long-term plan, which
So
was
when the Safest City group asked for an update, we were told that part of the reason that the detailed plan had not gone ahead is because you were working with Tainui in terms of interconnect with the rail station. I have an email with that in. So is that an issue? Is the connection with the rest of the PT, the potential for development of Waikato space in a rail station. Is that part of the conversation, or is that not part of the conversation?
So we're considering the long-term development of the central city and all of the projects that are occurring and what is best for the location. When the business case was approved, it was a renewal of the existing transport centre, and it's always been a renewal of the existing transport centre. Opportunities have come forward for consideration, and so the current design continues to be the original scope of the business case that was approved by this committee.
And you're having those other conversations as well.
Yes.
I'll show you the email because that's not how it's.
Yes, we do, and we have that with all the development community. So yes, but
So-
it hasn't caused a delay in this design program.
So a couple of questions in terms of CIPTED. The idea was to have some CIPTED specialist involved in the design from the very day one. Can we know who that is? Or, I mean, Kelvin doesn't
Come down,
know.
Martin.
Kelvin Powell doesn't know that I asked him yesterday. Do we know?
Yeah, come
Yes.
down. You.
Sorry.
We'll just call Martin because I know
Yeah, that would be good.
he'll be able to answer the detailed questions.
I mean, I wasn't going to do it in the committee. I was going to ask for a private update, but since the questions are out there, I will.
Yes, in answer to your question through the chair, that yes, we have CIPTED specialists helping us with the design. We have Isthmus are our design consultants, and they've got
Sorry.
Isthmus are our design consultants, and they have also have some sub-consultants working for them as well on different elements of the design. So CIPTED is really high in the design process because that was one of the key objectives of the business case, was to improve personal security throughout the design process.
Is there a police CIPTED specialist involved? Because that's what we were told in the beginning.
I'd have to come back to you on that. I mean,
And
we've got
also-
a lot of stakeholders involved in the design process. I mean, the police are part of that process as well. Yeah.
Yeah, none of us were quite sure in that
Yeah.
group. And also the University of Waikato, who's a partner in that crime prevention group, Lisa, who is a CIPTED specialist and a partner in the project. Are we including her in the thinking?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. But if you could pass me those details, that'd be great, and I will make sure they're hooked into it. Yep.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that can be achieved by going through Kelvin Powell and getting both projects to align really closely. Last question on this, because I don't want to labour it, because I did want to. Two last questions. Firstly, you were saying it's not delayed, Eva, so I take your word for that. It was on the list of projects in, what did you say, what year? The annual plan?
Long-term plan?
Long-term plan.
It has
so
been on
that's-
our long-term plan list of projects for a
Yeah.
long time.
And you're saying it was at that stage was determined when it would be, when the money would be spent.
So the annual plan 2023-24 process, it was part of the
Right.
capital program push-pull of projects, and the dollar, it was shifted out for actual delivery
Okay.
timeframe.
I can't recall that ever being laid on the table when we were asked about deferrals. It was, Madam Chair?
12 months, right?
Yeah.
And I recall questions from several members, and it did fit with the detailed design and some of the work that's been happening. So it wasn't a material.
Yeah.
Was the answer that we
from that
got. Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. In terms of its current trajectory and funding, given the escalation, and every year that we don't get it done, the escalation gets worse. When will we see the completion of this project?
Sure.
Is it at risk in any other stage as well? I mean, it's going to be funded, it's going to be done, yes?
That's the current plan, yep. And we've got support from Wakatai for the project. I mean, they can't give us any certainty around funding into the next NLTP period because everything's up for grabs there. But certainly they're fully supporting the design process over the next 12 months to complete that. And so we can at some point in the not too distant future come to you with an update around likely costs, because as Evelisa explained, cost escalations around all sorts of things have been quite significant over the last 3 years. The world has changed. So
and that's a concern. It's
yeah, I mean, the $8 million is definitely that was set in the business case a number of years ago when I first arrived at council back in 2020. So that's an old figure that will definitely be out of date.
cool. Thank you. Have some views on that, but
And to answer your when will it be completed, in the General Manager's report, we've noted that the opening date of the Transport Centre is currently estimated to be 14 to 24 months post the contract award. And so once it's approved by this Infrastructure and Transport Committee.
2.5 years before we see.
For construction, yes, that's always been.
Before construction starts?
No. For construction. So once the design's approved, so it's about a 2 year.
About a 2 year or just over 2 years before we'll see it operating again. Yeah.
Different topic, Madam Chair. Project Watershed, Water 3 report. I see that. And I just, we had that conversation, Deputy Mayor, remember, with Pam from Regional Council, and we asked for greater input into how Project Watershed money is determined in our part of the central catchment, what used to be called the central catchment. When there was an action to do something about that, can you recall, Angela, because I had to leave that.
It was just they were going to think about our request and come back to us. I don't know if that's the case yet.
Is there any way we can hasten that work? Because I know that I've spoken to Pam and she is leaning into the idea that we should know more.
I can follow up with Regional Council and as a staff action and bring that back.
Because I know we're contracted to do the work, but I'm talking. How confident? Well, there's no political input into it. We all agree on that. But in terms of technical input, your team determining the budget for the Hamilton spend, how confident do you feel that you have sufficient input and success in that conversation?
I would be referring to Fiona at the back. In terms of this council, this council approves the Hamilton City Council portion of the budget through our annual plan and through this committee. In terms of the investment through Regional Council and the Central Catchment Committee being brought back into Hamilton City, we do have a service level agreement that is in place but under review to understand and determine those. And so
okay, so last question, and to lead into that one might help you. Prior to the change in politics, I was the representative for my sins because I've always been involved. We went to the Central Catchment Committee. At least we had some oversight of the bigger budget because it's a huge budget. It's a huge budget, and it extends from a much bigger area, Waipa, through the other end of our river. Now we have, what would be the best way to increase our political oversight, that we could go to Regional Council and say, we understand and we want input at a political level to the spend in Hamilton City? I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to be,
So there are a couple of options that I can explore through this committee as a staff action, and one of those is we invite Regional Council to come and provide updates on the public transport services for the city, and we also and other agencies to provide updates. I just need to determine whether it would be appropriate for an update in the Project Watershed and the Central Catchment update to be provided to this committee from Regional Council as an opportunity.
Remember, we also requested to more information around pest management as well.
Yeah,
that was all wrapped up in there.
So maybe we could put a motion through you, Madam Chair, not a big bolshy one at this stage, but one that reminds them that we've had agreement that we invite them to discuss these two topics with us. can give it within the next couple of months, because
Can we do that? Are you happy for that to be a staff action?
yeah, and give me something that I can go back to the chairperson of regional council on, and you and I can sit with her and work it out, because as you'll hear in my debate, I have some concerns about us being a recipient as opposed to, I'm not saying at a staff level, and you might want to comment on that, being a recipient and a contractor of the work, as opposed to having that purview across how central catchment money is spent.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can say that we have a very good working operational relationship with our Waikato Regional Council stakeholders. So from an operational perspective, the relationship works really well, but I'm happy to work with Evelisa to help support and move your motion forward.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I'm supportive of having this council having visibility of the works that are happening in the city, so elected members are aware and can support in terms of the communities involved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Probably my question is for Martin again, just on the transport centre.
Can I just ask before that, are we likely to see, when's the next touch point for elected members in terms of the design? Is that booked in for a briefing at some point? Soonish? Or in the work programme?
We haven't got a briefing booked in or workshop?
Yes, the plan is to bring it through a briefing and then bring through committee so that the details can be shown and talked through. We're just waiting on the designs to come back, so we can't book a briefing in time until we have the information returned.
Okay, great. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Martin, I was wondering, in terms of safety, which has been raised as one of the key issues we're trying to solve, I've heard, through some of the, I've heard some experiences overseas in terms of addressing safety at transfer stations and things. And one of the most effective things was actually just having staff there full time. That was way more effective than CCTV cameras and everything else. So what are we doing in terms of actually just looking at, say, funding or sharing the cost with WRC of having a city safe officer or two there literally all the time that the bus is operating, or at least at the more problematic times?
I suppose we haven't put any thought into that at the moment. Certainly, through the design process, we're looking to do as much as we can to open up the area, improve lighting, improve CCTV, just enclosing the whole area, you can control things better. But with regards to that sort of back-end operational day-to-day stuff, we will need to have a look at that. So that's a good point to raise at this stage.
Just further to that, it's possibly a good opportunity to work with the, apologies, I'm not the Crime Prevention Action Group, to actually understand, is there an opportunity that this council would support in terms of co-location, because there are office spaces within the transport centre, and so future, what could that look like? Should this council want to pursue that option?
Yeah, and through that, there was some Better Off funding, which I think funded some more city safe officers. For example, could we do a pilot or just a test for a little while where we see with having some people there permanently, does that make the users actually just at least feel safer, or does it have any impact on the number of complaints?
City Safe used to be based at the Transport Centre.
So our parking team is based at the Transport Centre already, but they're not the City Safe team, and I do know that they are there on site during certain times, but I'd need to work with Calvin Powell because he has all of that level of detail. Yeah.
Would it be possible, say, if we are having a briefing then on the Transport Centre at some touch point coming up to come back to us on that issue? I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, because we can't delve into that stuff today without the information.
It's into alignment, which is kind of what I'm seeking anyway, and then do that and then come back to councillors for their input, if that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see an actual, like if we do need an extra resource around a person being based there specifically for just being a city safe officer or something, then that might have to come to LTP, but just...
Well, that can certainly be a factor.
I mean, if I could just respond to that through Madam Chair, it's my previous experience when I was at Tauranga City Council, we had quite a significant safety issue at the transport hub in the centre of the city there. And when we introduced staff, contracted staff in there to manage security, certainly it did significantly improve. It didn't get rid of it completely. There were still issues, but it certainly improved significantly having people there on the ground, not just the CCTV.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But there is a cost to that, though.
Yeah. Just for certainty for elected members, can we please have a staff action to look for a briefing spot when the timing is right, sooner rather than later, on the Transport Centre? So then we know it's been captured on the list. Thank you, Councillor Van Osten, and welcome, Councillor Tawariki. Nice to have you.
Keep their quorum alive.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yay. We did note your late arrival. Yeah. My question's with regard to the VKT EOI. And on page 258, we've crossed out including park and ride. It's something that we've long talked about as a tool to encourage people to use buses from outside of our city boundary, and it also has come up through regional council workshops and future-proof subcommittee, PT subcommittee. Would there be a reason why we've crossed it off?
So this program is about the planning side of it. It's not about the infrastructure, and so the including park and ride is very specific, so sort of closes it out, allowing a wider scope to be utilised in the accelerated multimodal package, and so that incorporates what does that package look like, and does it include park and rides, and just that planning and thinking processes is my understanding as to why it was.
Okay, so
it's not eliminated from the thinking. It's just crossed out as an edit in the document.
All right, so it's not
to avoid specifics.
Off the list of things that might be considered in the future.
Park and rides are an integral part, and so no, absolutely will be included in thinking.
Thanks, Evelisa.
Thank you. Right, that looks like all the questions. So there are a couple of recommendations on page 210. I'm happy to move. That's just noting approval of 2 submissions, and then the VKT program draft 2 is attached as well. Can I? Thank you, Councillor Van Osten, seconding. I just want to make a couple of comments in terms of slightly adjacent, but on page 213, there's some commentary there around the changes from the waste minimisation from government. Councillor Van Oosteren and myself had the great pleasure of attending at Claudelands this week, 3 days of waste mins along with some of the team. And there were some fantastic speakers during those 3 days. And when we find times in our diary, we're going to put together a quick report for you on the highlights and things that we want to draw your attention to. But one of the concerns is because Hamilton, in terms of our waste, was so far ahead and has done such a great job, that in actual fact, there are some areas where it will be a bit of a step back for us, and that is a little concerning. But the staff are all over it. Where they can, they're being submitting to government. But as an example, and the devil is always in the detail, isn't it? They're not, with the changes, they're not going to allow newspaper or handy towels to be put into our food scraps bin, which devastates me because I make these cute little newspaper pockets and put my protein scraps, because I compost everything else, and have the most perfect tidy food scraps bin. So the staff are, wherever they can, they're really pushing, look, actually, without sounding arrogant, we know better here in this space. We've been delivering this. We've been successful in this. So just wanted to highlight that because it is touched on in the General Manager's report on the update through the waste legislation. So yeah, not fantastic, but there were a lot of other really great things at that conference, but a lot of work for us to do. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. And also just highlight, last term in this committee, we did a regular external committees report. So the likes of the two committees, regional council transport committees that we represent on. We're not going to do that. We're just going to allow the General Manager to put them in here, but you can always talk to the members, and gosh, if there's anything that we really think everyone needs to have an eyesight over, we'll flick an email or have a chat in the tea room. So really great report. Thank you. You have a busy portfolio. Who was the seconder? Councillor Van Oosteren is the seconder. Did you want to say anything? No. Ms Southgate?
Thank you. Big surprises coming up on what I'm going to comment on. Just two things. The easiest one to clear off is that I do believe with the size of the budget and the significant issues that we face as a city in terms of riverside erosion and our tributaries into the river, that we need better, deeper governance oversight of the budget. Otherwise, those that do may be out in the Waipa stretches, the semi-rural stretches, and that will have a louder voice than we do. So we need to kind of have a think about that. And, you know, I'm not sure what the structure is, but I'm glad we're going to progress that. In terms of the transport centre, my bad for not actually noticing the movement in the annual plan, because I sure would have said something at the time. I know this is infrastructure, this is sitting here as a transport project, but we need to bring this forward. In my opinion, I'll be looking for conversations in the long-term plan. Let me tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, all those partners that are involved in making us a safer city acknowledge that the transport centre and its connection to precincts around it, which includes the precinct that runs between Kmart and Burger King, and that is a significant hub for antisocial and law-breaking behaviour. We've known that for some time. We all know that. We can't keep skirting around the edges of that. It's not a nice place to be, and it runs contrary to what we're trying to achieve in terms of having people feel that public transport is a really lovely, safe alternative. So we've got to address it. So I'll be coming at that in the LTP. I just want to give you a heads up on that. I think that we need to get the staff working closer together with Kelvin's team around the safety aspects of that. I don't want to get my fingers in the kitchen. Sorry, bear with me for just a little extension. I don't want to get my fingers in the kitchen, but I do need to understand, and this project is our chance to really turn up the dial in CPTED and show that we can reinvent public spaces that are fantastic and that do address crime. And if we don't do that, we miss a massive opportunity that who knows how many more years it will take to get that opportunity back again. So I'm not taking my eye off this ball. I'm unashamedly going to be quite bolshy on this matter, and it will be one of the issues, and as Deputy Mayor Angela knows, that I will be leading out into the discussion.
You're coming at it.
Coming at it in the long-term plan. And so, you know, staff, I will be looking for that connect between the two parts of the problem and looking for a ray of light in the horizon that we can start to fix this issue that we share there. So thank you for all your work on it. But let me tell you that my tolerance for any slippage is 0 from this point on. There you go. That was quite clear, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I'm having a stroppy day.
Any other speakers? There are no. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
I just wanted to, I guess, build on what I was, my questioning before in terms of having people, say City Safe officers or whoever it may be at the transport centre, while we can do a lot around the environment that we create, ultimately, you know, it is around actually having people there. And I think that would make a huge difference. So I'm really keen to see what options we have, even if it's to test it out to get some data to see how effective it is. Yeah, and we can learn from, I'm sure that around the world, they've all had issues with, say, like transport centres, people coming in and needing to use the bus when it's dark, all of that stuff. We can learn from how they've addressed that. But yeah, I think having some people on the ground all of the time that it's in use could be a really good way to address the issue. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so that's all the speakers. Councillor Moko, you weren't here for all of this, so you can happily not vote if you wish. Yep, thank you. All right, so those, and it's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And there are none against. That's carried. Great. Okay, we are now, I will move to public excluded, seconded by, thank you, Councillor Hamilton. All those in favour?